Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Real Trending podcast. Today, I would like to welcome Stephen Barks. He is the president and COO of Clark Realty. They are RealTrends 500 brokerage. So welcome, Stephen.
Thanks for having me. It's been a minute since we got to speak, so I'm happy to be on here.
I know Stephen was one of the biggest fans of what used to be our broker newsletter at HousingWire. I used to hear from him almost every week. Really thoughtful information and leadership, thought leadership. So thanks, Stephen. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. I certainly enjoyed reading it, and still all the articles that you guys write. I read a lot of it, so.
Great. Well, I want to start out by talking a little bit about your business model and compensation model. I know you're a virtual broker. You have an equity. You include equity if the salesperson decides to take it. So tell me a little bit about Worth Clark and maybe how the idea for the company developed and where you are now, because your growth has really exploded in the last several years.
Yeah, definitely. So the company was technically founded in 2010. Didn't really become a business until 2012. Our founder, his name's Brian, super fantastic guy. He got into real estate as an agent, right, and was at a traditional brokerage because as you're new, that might just be you go to the biggest brokerage in town, and that's where you end up. And he soon found out that it was not a great fit for him. You got to think about the time that he was in. It was right after the great financial crisis and the bubble. So he comes into a market where he kind of had to be creative for clients, and he found out that he couldn't do that at the brokerage he was at. So the idea for Worth Clark was kind of built out of that frustration of, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I have to charge this, etc. So that's kind of the idea of how it got started. Fast forward to today, we're in 15 states. Just got the word yesterday, actually, that we will officially open our 16th state, hopefully within the month, maybe next month. And we have about 1,200 agents. The actual company, what we offer, it's a platform for agents to have that flexibility, kind of tying back to why it was created. Flexibility to vary their service offerings, what they charge their clients, and the freedom from traditional brokerage restrictions to run the business how they want to run it. And on the flip side, we provide outstanding customer support and great tools for their business that they can use if they want to. And then part of our offering is a great compensation model, and that even provides greater flexibility for them. So we are a transaction fee model, but even within that, the compensation model, we offer flexibility. So whether you're a new agent, a part-time agent, a full-time agent, or a team, we have different plans that fit which bucket you may fall in. We also have a kind of a pay-as-you-go option for transaction fees with caps, and then we offer transaction fee subscriptions with unlimited transactions included. So we've kind of taken the flexibility piece all the way through everything that we do.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, transaction fee or low fee models in a lot of cases have really risen the ranks of our brokerage rankings in the past maybe 5 to 8 years. And there's this myth in the industry that automatically means no services, that a transaction fee means you don't get anything from the brokerage. But I think that's really flipped on its head in previous years. So tell me a little bit about, I know you have a tech platform, I know that you offer other services. So what do you have to say about that myth, and how are you your company kind of breaking the mold with that?
There's a few ways you can look at it. I think one is what we used to get a lot a decade ago was, well, if you go there, you'll get what you pay for. And we tried to turn that on its head. And I think seeing the success of this type of model now, 10 years on, we turned it on the head and said, are you getting what you're paying for at your current brokerage? So technology has really closed the gap between what any company in this industry or out of this industry can do for you. And it's much cheaper to be able to provide those tools that were, once way out of reach, unless you were with a company that had the means to be able to pay for it, develop it, provide it, etc. So it's partly that, and it's partly agents kind of realizing that there is an alternative option. You don't have to be traditional. And in fact, I would argue that traditional is kind of going the other way now, with the growth of companies like ours. So I think that the myth is still there for some, but that's okay. Not every agent is a good fit for this type of model either. So, like I kind of said in the beginning, we give you a lot of flexibility to run the business how you want to run it. So if you don't have that, entrepreneurial type of spirit, this may not be right for you. I think another aspect of it too is not just the advent of the internet, but I think when a company like Zillow comes along, and then now it doesn't matter what brokerage you're with, your broker by far and away is not the one that's providing, generating the business for agents nowadays. It's agents going and finding those leads on their own through companies like Zillow. So that was a pretty big shift. And when agents were targeted to pay for leads themselves and not the brokers, well, I think it's natural that this type of model would exist. So I think big splits used to exist whenever the broker was the one that mattered and the name mattered and they provided the leads from the walk-ins. And today it's kind of flipped on its head. They come through agents now, not necessarily brokerages.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially the teams. Teams generate the leads, or they're signing up for these services, which I think Zillow really is buyer leads, but Realtor.com and Homes.com are starting to focus on seller leads as well. And so they, it's kind of been a shift. Teams have been super profitable, because because they're providing these leads, and brokerages haven't been doing as much of that. So they've had to kind of reimagine how they're serving the agents.
Hmm. Yeah, I think just the role of the agent has shifted so much. They truly are the center of it now versus being a piece of, someone else's business. So.
Well, I want to talk specifics about your growth, moving into 2024. Are you doing any M&A? Are you really growing organically, looking at new markets? Tell me a little bit about like your recruiting goals, your culture, and how you're looking at growth in the coming year.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot to unpack in that. I think probably the best way to start is the theme for our company this year internally, is the world is not flat, and neither is worth Clark. So in 2023, depending on who you trust for your your home sale data, everybody's about the same. The market was down about 19-20%. Through November. I think we'll get December and full year numbers soon, but something like that, right? It's right around 20%. I'm happy to report that we didn't see a drop in business. But while we kicked the market in the teeth from that perspective, it's pretty a remarkable accomplishment. Being completely flat is not something we're used to, nor something we like. So our main focus is obviously to not be flat this year, but we'll do that by providing value and tools to agents that make them successful. It's as simple as that. We started retooling our messaging with our recruiting this past year, and we were able to attract much more productive agents and teams on the whole than in years past, because it's for us it's not agent count, it's transaction count. That's where the revenue and things like that for the company come from. It's not just agents, it's agents that do well and they produce. So as far as our culture goes and things like that, being a virtual brokerage just naturally more challenging to figure out. It's just different than it was before. I think if you put all of our agents in a convention center together, you'll find that they're all different. We don't have a template agent necessarily. And we survey our agents about twice a year, and we've been doing that for a long time. And one thread that we've picked up out of our agents is that they want some sort of connection. The appetite for connection may vary, and that type of connection it's different per the agent, but there is some sort of common theme that we've discovered and starting to lean to, and it's just that idea of connection. So I'll give you a few examples of what I mean. We started doing this in a much more traditional sense in the past year. We started organizing virtual events such as masterminds, where we had agents lead as kind of the keynote speaker on things, like how they do social media, if they're a mogul in their social media game, And if you have an agent who's part-time that has a full-time job, but they're a successful agent. So, the theme was leading a double life. So we have these agent masterminds that we've started. We have broker chats where agents can join and just fire off questions from the hip about anything. We've started organizing much more coaching sessions. We've 10x the amount of training classes that we offer, whether that's done, internally or outside the brokerage by a third party. And we've started organizing more informal, in-person events like agent lunches. It's simple things like that, but it's a bunch of just connection stuff. So that's part of our culture building this past year. We've also we've expanded the idea of what connection means. Recently we actually developed our own proprietary mobile app. It provides connection in a variety of ways. It's not a CRM. It's not a transaction management app. It's none of that stuff. It's all centered around connection. And what I mean by that is, agents can connect with other agents at Worth Clark. They can DM, they can, do social posts within there, but they can also find it easier to refer their clients back and forth with the referral feature. They can find, WCR agent vetted vendors in their own markets, things like that. There's a launch pad to get to all of our other tools and systems. It's truly an app idea that has connection at the core. They can even chat with our agent services team right in the app during business hours, so they can get chat support now. It's all about connection. So I'd say how we're using that going into the new year, and as far as expanding our market footprint and recruiting, things like that. Um, One of the number one reasons why people join us, and we ask every agent that comes in why, and it's our compensation model. There's no secret to that. But then after that, it's because there's a Worth Clark agent that we trust there. The agent support is outstanding. There's all of a sudden all these other things that really matter underneath all the dollars. So that's what we're kind of pressing the foot on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back to something you said about your recruiting message and that you tweaked it to kind of encourage more productive agents to join. Can you be more specific about that? What specifically helped you kind of move that needle?
Well, it first started with an analysis of all of our agents, right? And because we were picking up a lot of newer agents, but when we really dove into is what we're doing, ultimately the best thing for the company, the numbers show that no, not really. So with that in mind, we went back to the drawing board to figure out, okay, great, what's the type of agent we want to attract? Is it the agent that does 500 transactions a year on their team? Is it the agent that does 5 a year? What is that? And our type of model and our culture really fits those that are in the middle. They're solid agents. They make great incomes. They have careers out of this, but they're not the part-time agent that has a license on the side. And quite frankly, um, we're not a company that has unlimited amount of capital to just go out and headhunt big teams and things like that. So we landed somewhere in the middle. As far as the messaging goes, we just catered to that type of agent, to that sort of demographic. In that, hey, we've always said we're flexible. What does that actually mean? Here are real examples from agents within the company. Hey, here's their own testimonies that we can put in front of you too. So we really just changed the strategic approach, not necessarily like how it's worded. We just looked at, okay, who are we actually wanting to talk to? We have those agents in the company. Let's talk to them and figure out why they're here, and then turn around and present that. So that's what we mean kind of by we retooled our messaging.
Are you using any type of like AI recruiting program? Like there are several out there to analyze your current agents and the agents that you're looking at.
We don't use AI in that sense.
Okay.
Later on, I think we'll probably touch on what we are using it for, but in what
Okay.
other areas we're looking at using it for. But as of right now, no, we don't have any AI touching our recruiting side.
All right, I'm going to trip you up with this next one. Um, we talked about it a little bit before the podcast. Um, Basically, I ask this question in every podcast, and it is, what is your aha moment? A moment where you pivoted, and whether you came up with an idea or you did something in your personal life or professional life that kind of changed the trajectory of where you were going. I know you joined the company. I don't know what year it was, but when they were a lot smaller than they are now. So why don't you tell me a little bit, first of all, when you joined the company, and then what was that aha moment for you?
Let's see. I've been with the company for over 11 years now. So whatever,
Okay.
do the math on that and go backwards. 2012, something like that.
Yeah.
2013. Um, it's amazing the years just kind of roll by. I was the 15th person in the company with an actual real estate license when I joined. That's how small we were. So now we have 1,200 or so.
Yeah.
So it's very different. I can look back at a few. There may not necessarily been an aha moment in that, oh, here's one thing that happened and it changed everything forever. It was more like realization over a period of time. So going from 50 agents to 100 agents, no big deal. Even though that is literally doubling, your head count. That was very easy to actually do from the business side. It didn't really change anything. When you get to 400, 500 agents, it's when that's when wheels can start falling off of a brokerage, because now you're hiring a lot more people, and you're trying to figure out different tools, and you're just kind of chasing around. So there was a period of time just a handful of years ago, where we started really modeling out, not just financials, but things like headcount, trying to predict when we'd have to hire certain types of positions, right? There comes a time in every company where you're no longer just a small little local brokerage. You're actually getting big. You're a real company now. And we went through that. We figured out that if we have to continue using the tools we have and continue hiring at the rate we're hiring, this thing isn't necessarily scalable. Um, we could do it, but everything coming in would go straight back out the door, and that will, hamstring your growth later down the line. So there was a period in which we went through a ton of technology implementation, automating a lot of things. For example, I think we really just wrapped this up at the beginning of 2023, but it was over the course of probably 12, 18 months, just improving our onboarding of agents. And by the beginning of 2023, we were able to speed that entire timeline up from the time an agent says, "Hey, I want to join," to the time that they really have everything they need going, set up, etc. We cut that by 3 full days in about 2 months worth, just because of some of the automations we put in place. So when we talk about AHA and how can we make this more scalable, we really had to look at doing things like that. So there's plenty of other things, other pieces of technology that have come into play, but it's really been able to not just delay hiring, an endless amount of people, to keep up with all the work, but it's also made our existing employees so much more productive. So I would say that's probably one of the bigger things, just from running the business, that really kind of changed, and so now we have a lot more flexibility in how we want to spend some of the revenue to grow.
Yeah, a lot of brokers go through those growing pains, and some of them, that's when they decide not to grow anymore. Um, there-
Or sell,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough, but we went through it, we got through it, and it's actually been a great exercise, because then you start evaluating what's really important to the business and what's not.
yeah.
And then once you do one thing, you can all of a sudden start seeing so many other things that you can do that you just didn't see before, because you were just so far into the weeds, of all the manual labor, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go into AI, and specifically like generative AI. Obviously ChatGPT, there's classes all over the place for agents right now with marketing. What are your thoughts on the use of that, and where are you going as a brokerage with it?
Well, it's certainly here. It's not going anywhere, despite whatever regulations and things that come. It's here. So I think the actual adoption rate is for agents is much lower than the amount of attention it's getting. Proportionally speaking,
Yeah.
adopting AI, I don't think it's simply not intuitive for real estate agents for a variety of reasons. But yes, there are successful agents and teams that really, and I mean really, use AI in their marketing. But I think if you poll every agent in the country, a fraction of those agents would say, "Oh yeah, I use AI at all." That said, it's a new technology that, as of now, it has unlimited potential, and it's undoubtedly something that every producing agent should be scratching the surface with. Maybe not the agent themselves, immersing themselves into it, but they should be, if they've hired a marketing content person, they should be using AI, to do their business. So it's here. It should be around. It's kind of like when email or e-signature arrived, right? Like those tools used to not be the norm. They were not overnight successes. I think when I started in real estate 15, 16 years ago, hardly anyone was using e-signature, which is shocking to think about today because pretty much everybody does, although not every client does. But yeah, so AI for real estate agents, it's the same. It'll make you much more efficient, like e-signature makes you more efficient, and it'll just take some time to see that adoption. That said, we actually built our own AI writing assistant for our agents called Wanda. Wanda writes blogs, articles, social media captions, listing descriptions, generates list of content calendar ideas. It can write responses to online reviews for the agents. We've purposely built it though to be so easy. We call it push button get content, because of everything I just mentioned. It's overwhelming. There's where do you start, that sort of thing. So our tool is so easy. It's so straightforward. An agent doesn't have to do much thinking in order to get the value out of the tool. We also have a GPT version of it. It's much more than a content writer. It's more like an assistant that can do, I guess, anything you really ask it to do, but things like gather publicly available property information and organize into a report for you. I think the GPT store came online yesterday, actually, with OpenAI. So that whole thing will be really interesting to watch. Everything is just moving. It's so new and it's moving so fast that no one really knows how it's going to be deployed a year from now yet. But what I do know with our tool is that it reduces the agent's time spent on things that, in a perfect world, if you can remove those things, then the agent has a lot more time to spend with their clients and potential clients, things that really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I do know some brokers who are kind of using it, like they put all their training into it. So they have like an on-demand training, and then others that are using it for, I don't think it's really generative AI, but they're using the recruiting side of it to analyze different agents and their likeliness to leave the broker at which stage they're in, or based on their current productivity as well. So it's interesting.
Gotcha.
I'm looking forward to seeing all of the different uses for it as we move forward.
Yeah, so they're just building out like a predictive type of tool that they
Yeah.
can try to get out ahead of agents
Yeah.
leaving. Yeah, definitely. At the beginning of this year, we didn't use AI to do that, but our executive team, we reached out to hundreds of our producing agents personally, calling them, setting times just to see how it's going. How's business? It was a really weird time in the market earlier this year, right? So it was kind of the nuclear winter version that a lot of agents were experiencing. So we did a lot of that proactive reach out in order to show them, the value of the company and how they can better their business, and just to quite frankly check in on them. They're all human beings, and their industry is under attack, and the market is crazy, etc. So um, we did that instead of the AI doing it.
Yeah. There's a lot of negativity in the industry right now with, people making crazy predictions and, not really, because the truth is you just don't know what's going to happen with any of the current litigation, or even the market looks like it's kind of starting to come back. That's a good thing. So where do you see the most opportunity for brokerage leaders today?
It's a great question, and I think because 2023 was so tough, 2024, it looks not a whole lot different depending on who you are believing, which pundit
Yeah.
you believe, things like that. But and there are a lot of eyes on the industry for a lot of different reasons. So market's been all over the place, and there's interest rates, there's AI taking over the world and industry, et cetera. I think the real opportunity, though, um, for the leaders in our industry is just to find a way to filter out all that noise and just remain steadfast on keeping agents' heads where they should be, which is providing the best service and value to clients. You can There's too many things to worry about. I think you got to make your world a little bit more smaller than that sometimes. And as far as I'm concerned, buyers and sellers are still going to use an expert to buy and sell a house from now until the sun burns out, right? So yes, how that works from a functional point of view might fundamentally change some in the near future, but it's not like your cousin's going to be exclusively buying a house using artificial intelligence anytime soon. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. There's so much nuance to real estate that you need a true human expert, right? You need someone to walk into that kitchen with you and help you figure out what you want to might redo with it, and put you in touch with a contractor who can give you a bid on that. You need someone to do that, and people don't want to have to do that on their own. So find a way to keep your agents not only focused, but find ways to also help them in their own business. I think that's the opportunity. I think everything else is just distraction, honestly.
I agree. It's really getting agents to understand the value that they offer if they don't understand it, and some of them don't. In really kind of laying that groundwork for them. Here's the value that you offer. Don't I there was a comment from an agent in Florida, and he said to me, we do all these things during the transaction, and we don't tell the seller or the buyer because we're trying to make it easy and smooth for them. So they don't even know that, something happened with the inspection early on, or somebody canceled, or something happened with the mortgage, but they worked it out. And it's kind of now imperative that you let your buyers and sellers know. You don't have to tell them in the moment, but you should let them know that you've solved these problems for them.
I agree, and it's one of those things. How much do you actually do, for your client? Do you have to, you know, every time you make a phone call to a party in the transaction, do you also have to tell I
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
100% agree and understand it. And how can you put it in your marketing materials to get that point across too? Because it's so nuanced, it's so situational. Every transaction
Yep.
is a little bit different. And yes, I think by most of your clients think it's all kind of the same. And it's really not. There's so many different moving pieces that, as a buyer's agent, you are literally a project manager. And if something doesn't, if a timeline's not hit, or some other party fails at their job, you know, it's your fault, even though it's not. So you have to go above and beyond to make sure that, everybody else is doing their job. And sometimes that's might come across as pestering the other party too, just to ensure, hey, we have this right, we've got this right. And it's unfortunate that clients don't see all that, but at the same time, it's fortunate they don't see all that. That's the purpose of an agent. So how do you convey that to your buyers and your sellers? It's a difficult one to do. I think, again, every client is unique too, and there's a unique way to be able to get that across to them. But you are absolutely right that it might be, now's the time more than ever to be able to convey all the value, all these things that you do, that you're not even going to have to deal with Mr. Seller or Mrs. Buyer, right? So yeah, if agents can find good ways to do that, then they'll be in great position to have plenty of business come their way. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. My next question is your greatest business lesson learned.
I would say that there's plenty. I could probably write a book on all these lessons that I've learned, but I would say that the number one thing is to ask your customers, your agents, what they want, and then experiment with it. Put something out rapidly and iterate. You'll never have all the information, and the conditions will never be perfect. There's all that stuff. If you wait for both of those things, then putting something in action for your customers, you may never do it, right? But talk to your agents, sit down with them, call them, see them at an agent happy hour, ask them how it's going, how they feel, what they like about their job, what they don't like right now, what tools they use, what tools they don't use, and why. You're going to learn a lot if you just talk to them and figure out what their needs are, and then put things in front of them that could be solutions to those needs. So, yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing, because that's the one that just keeps happening, right? So we constantly are trying to figure out what else can we do for agents. So that one's probably the most important one.
Okay. My final question is just what does the future hold for Worth Clark Realty?
Oh gosh, we are exploring. You know, we're exploring creative alternative ways to represent clients and provide value there. Obviously, we're certainly looking at AI, as kind of alluded to earlier, not just to write listing descriptions for agents, but improve other back end areas of the business too. And we don't have any plans to slow our growth. We're going to continue growing our market footprint. Kicking off this year, entering into a new state, several new markets pretty quick, which is really cool. But we definitely want to remain uniquely focused on what value we can actually return to the agent, be that the tools we offer or what services we offer, et cetera. So we're just going to continue to look for ways to do that. And I think that, growth will ultimately come with it.
Wonderful. And congratulations on your 16th market or state. So thank you so much, Stephen, for joining the Real Trending podcast. We appreciate you being here.
I'm so happy that you reached out to have me on. It was an honor. Really appreciate it.